In this video, I'll look at getting some textures back in the plants. Right now they're all shading gray, and they're going to look a little too uniform if we render. For example, if I click on the Render Production button, we'll get a quick render of, well, an interesting colored jungle. There's a difference here between what displays in the viewport and what actually renders, based on the colors we've assigned. There's limited things that can actually display in the view here depending on what that material is. We can see, though, they have a nice shine to them and look, well, somewhat plant-like. There's also no lights in the scene, and that would really help get things going. What I'll do, though, is press M to pull up my material editor, and I'm going to reassign this map I've already got into these plants. What I've done here, and I'll double-click on Map 1 to select it and show it, is to create one image that's used for all the different plants. Over here in the bitmap parameters on the right, I'll click on View Image, and there's a preview of this image. I made this in Adobe Illustrator using vector shapes and gradient meshes to craft plant areas, I'll call them. Areas in which I can take those leaves and unwrap them or flatten them for texturing and stack those unwraps so that, for example, the lilies all share this blue and purple section for all the flowers. Other leaves are all in the striped section and so forth. In each section, then, it has multiple parts of the plant arranged slightly differently so the leaves all look a little different. The way I'll handle this, then, is by reusing this material. I'll take this Map 1 bitmap, and over here in the flowers, for example, drag the connection to the overall diffuse, and also over to the unscattered diffuse color. I'll do the same here on the subsurface for the lilies, and finally over to the banana. Overall and unscattered. Let's make sure that's diffuse color. It's very easy to put something where you want it just by clicking and dragging. There's an advantage to a node-based system like this. If you'd like, you can arrange this or lay out the materials by pressing L. There's the layout. What we can see here is there's our 4 materials that all share that common map and my dirt down below. I'll take these materials and press H to hide their properties. This way it only shows the selected maps, and I can rearrange this graph a little bit. I'll pull the pieces together and pull the dirt up. Then I'll use my mouse wheel to zoom in by scrolling, and I'll double click on the material samples for each one. Now when I press L again, I have a much easier to read graph, and we can see those materials for each plant. With those maps on, what I can do is now start to tune up the way the material looks. For example, I'll double click on the flowers. In each material like this, we've got properties that concern not only how does it color, but how much light scatters through, for example, and what is that color. For the flowers, I'm going to put in a rich warm yellow in the front surface scatter. When light hits the front and the color scatters within it, what color does it turn? And so I'll put in, here's a nice warm yellow. I'll also pull up the scatter weight, which I'll need to do some test renderings on. I'll pull up the front scatter weight just a little bit, and I'll also pull up the back scatter, as the flowers are more translucent. I can do the same with the other materials once I get some lighting in, but the big deal is I've connected that one texture. I'm instancing that texture, or reusing it, in multiple materials versus reloading the same texture over and over. In a quick render, my plants will look, well, like they did earlier, with all the right colors showing. I can see I've got some good subtlety going in the leaves, and all the flowers really have some pop in the color. They're all a little shiny, but I'll really want to get some daylight in the next videos first before I adjust the materials further. We have a lot of options in the materials. In this case, I wanted very translucent plants, so that when we navigate around the jungle, there's a glow to everything, sort of. I also wanted in here some variation, but to economize on the materials I'm using. And I did this by using a texture sheet. And like I said, we'll do this in games quite a lot, where we have one texture sheet in multiple shaders in more materials, either in 3ds Max or the game engine, and we reuse and reuse and reuse that one texture, saving on memory and keeping the frame rate up. In this case, it lets me use one texture to make it look like there's a lot of different plants in here. In reality, as we know from the object paint, they are rotated, scaled, scattered, and there's 3 slightly different starting models, giving me what looks like a randomized jungle with several different species that all appear to go together.